Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the listeners. First and foremost, thank you so much for attending PeptiDream's 2023 R&D Day presentation. Initially, in today's presentation, we will present on our three core R&D areas of focus, in which PeptiDream is employing our proprietary PDPS technology platform and associated peptide chemistry expertise to identify and optimize novel macrocyclic peptides for use in these three different core areas of focus. First off, moving left to right, is the use of our macrocyclic peptides in peptide RI conjugates for the targeted delivery of radioisotopes, both in therapeutic and diagnostic use. And this is really focused on combining the powerful tumor targeting ability of macrocyclic peptides with the cell-killing ability of radioisotopes. In the second part, we'll discuss non-RI conjugates, largely around peptide oligo drugs, peptide cytotoxic drugs, and other peptide types of conjugates that are of also significant interest, following a similar tissue, tumor, or targeting approach. And in the third part, we will discuss the use of our macrocyclic peptides as peptide therapeutics, a strong third modality with a variety of potential advantages over small molecules and antibody drugs that we are prosecuting against a wide range of diseases and therapeutic applications with a variety of global partners. So with that, in the next slide, briefly highlighting the concept of targeted radiotherapy. Targeted radiotherapy is based on using a target-specific ligand, highlighted in purple in the middle of the slide, that is conjugated via a linker to a chelator, which then is able to house a radioisotope that can either be a therapeutic radioisotope or a diagnostic radioisotope. In the case of the PeptiDream discovered programs, that target-specific ligand is a macrocyclic peptide, and the end goal is the delivery of RI, a radioisotope payload, selectively to tumors for cell killing. The main types of radioisotopes that are used in this application are either alpha or beta isotopes, both of which kill cancer cells by inducing DNA strand breaks. And alpha emitters, which are the three kind of most common, are highlighted here, being actinium-225, astatine-211, and lead-212. These alpha emitters induce double-strand breaks in the DNA, leading to cell death, and induce this damage over a shorter range, where in contrast, beta emitters, most commonly lutetium-177 and yttrium-90, largely induce single-strand breaks over a slightly longer range. And some of the advantages of targeted radiotherapy, certainly in contrast to broad external radiation, is the selective delivery of radiation directly to the tumor or a bias toward the tumor, which of course reduces whole body exposure and therefore side effects, and really allows for the use of much more potent therapeutic radioisotopes versus antibody drug conjugates. The radioisotopes are more effective. You can be used at lower doses and more potent in their cell killing ability. Their cytotoxicity is not dependent on cell internalization, so it's simply a proximal effect. You can avoid various drug-resistant mechanisms, and because the stableness of the linker DOTA conjugate, this really minimizes free payload release, which is an attribute often associated with ADCs. And because you can combine both the diagnostic and the therapeutic, you really can have better patient selection and determination of maximum safety doses through the concept of theranostics, which we'll touch on in the next slide. So on the far left is meant to highlight one of the significant advantages of the targeted radio pharmaceutical space, and that is the concept of theranostics, which is basically combining the therapeutic with the diagnostic in the case of the molecules PeptiDream is discovering, based off of a macrocyclic peptide targeting ligand conjugated via linker to a chelator, we can use the exact same peptide conjugate for both the diagnosis and treatment of cancer by simply exchanging the radioisotope that exists in the chelator. And so on the top part of that slide, some of the most common diagnostic agents, radioisotopes, are also listed here, such as fluorine-18, gallium-68, and copper-64, in addition to the previously mentioned therapeutic radioisotopes also listed here. And really, this unique theranostic approach of targeted radiopharmaceuticals really allows for kind of the quickest path to human proof of concept, which accelerates overall product development. And what we mean by that is, during preclinical development, as we identify and optimize multiple candidate series, both the diagnostic conjugate and the therapeutic conjugate can be utilized to rapidly establish tumor targeting and in vivo efficacy of the best or optimal peptide candidate in animal tuber models. So this really allows you to validate the candidate at a very early stage. And then we can take the paired diagnostic agent directly into humans to generate early human imaging data directly in the target patient population. And by doing this, this is often referred to as a phase 0 study, since it is not a phase 1 study. You can take this paired diagnostic into cancer patients and really de-risk the asset by determining, of course, one, how well it targets the tumor in these patients, and then also, two, its various pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics, which can be utilized. This data can then be utilized, to leverage these results to more efficiently design phase 1 and phase 2 studies, utilizing the diagnostic and therapeutic agent in discussions with the applicable regulatory body to really accelerate the clinical development of these agents. And the ability to really use that diagnostic to first determine if someone would respond to the therapeutic is a really significant advantage in the targeted radiopharma space. This area of targeted radiotherapy is undergoing what we would say is rapid growth. It's largely been driven, probably more largely driven outside of Japan at current, but it is really contributing to potentially become, say, the 4th or 5th pillar of how we treat cancer and revolutionizing this approach. And largely because of these 3 kind of basic concepts, which is just a very simple and powerful mechanism of action. And 2, it just really is a truly precise medicine. It's really see it and treat it, utilizing the diagnostic to determine that someone's tumor lights up, and then coming back with the therapeutic radioisotope to then treat the cancer. And so it's applicable across a variety of cancer indications, and really having a profound impact, I think, on the treatment of solid tumors, which have classically or historically been more challenging types of tumors to effectively treat. Some of the recent highlights in the area, in regards to at least the M&A, Novartis probably 5 or 6 years ago kind of probably kicked off in a lot of ways the targeted radiotherapy field, or the interest in the targeted radiotherapy field, with their acquisition of AAA in 2017, to which they gained the rights to what became Lutathera, which was approved in 2018, which is a macrocyclic peptide RI conjugate for the treatment of neuroendocrine tumors. Novartis then, of course, acquired Endocyte in 2018, which gained the rights to what became Pluvicto for prostate cancer, which was approved in 2022. And this is basically a small molecule RI conjugate. Bayer acquired Noria and PSMA Therapeutics in 2021. And then a deal that's very near and dear to our heart, PeptiDream acquired the Fujifilm Toyo no radiopharmaceutical business in 2022, which we'll touch on more. And we renamed that company PDR Radiopharma. And then more recently, Lilly is in the process of acquiring Point Biopharma. The deal has not closed as of yet. Here in 2023. So you're seeing significant interest, of course, from the big pharma companies. On the RI partnering side of the equation, PeptiDream actually started working with Novartis in 2019 on identifying and discovering macrocyclic peptides for use in these targeted radiopharmaceutical products. Fusion Pharmaceuticals, a US player, a US biotech company, formed a partnership with AstraZeneca in 2020. We had done our partnership with RayzeBio in 2020, and then Bicycle Therapeutics out of the UK announced deals earlier in this year with Bayer and Novartis. And then most recently, PeptiDream announced a new partnership with Genentech in 2023 for peptide RI conjugates. And so compared to 10 years ago, there is now significant interest from the vast majority of the major pharmaceutical companies in this area and the promise of targeted radio therapeutics. Just highlighting on the far right is over the last 10 years here, we've seen an astronomical growth in the number of RI companies. Again, largely this is US and or European biotech companies in the area. Many of these moving from very small size companies to now be, mid-size, small or mid-size companies. And the market size on the back of Lutathera and Pluvicto and the numerous products to come is envisioned or anticipated to grow to roughly $30 billion market size by 2030 globally. So PeptiDream acquired PDR Radiopharma in 2022. And really the genesis behind this was that PeptiDream, of course, was already discovering peptide RI conjugates across a number of partnerships. We were very, very confident in the ability of using macrocyclic peptides to deliver these RI payloads. And that growing confidence allowed us to look into ways that we could actually further move beyond just discovery, but actually be able to advance these into development and potentially into commercialization. And the opportunity came, very fortunately, for us to be able to acquire PDR Radiopharma, which now gives us really discovery all the way through commercialization capabilities. With PDR Radiopharma being a company that was established in 1968 and already actually markets a number of therapeutics and diagnostics on the market here in Japan. Just a couple of attributes. Japan, in regards to the radiopharm field, really is largely a duopoly. It's really dominated by just two main players, PDR Radiopharma, and the other being Nihon Medi-Physics. Whereas, as I mentioned, globally, there's almost 100 different players outside of Japan. And so on the left side is kind of how do we win in radiopharm? And PeptiDream and PDR discovered products, whether those are discovered in-house or in collaboration with our various partners. We then license out the ex-Japan rights to those compounds or products to our partners, while where possible, retaining the Japan rights. And we've done a very good job of both our programs with RayzeBio and Genentech. PeptiDream has retained the Japan rights to those products. And then the goal is then to leverage the partners' global clinical data or clinical data being generated outside of Japan to then bridge back into the Japan market where we can retain the rights and maximize the value of the products we're actually discovering. The other part B, I guess I'd say, is to fill out our pipeline. In addition to internally discovered products, is really bringing in either targeted or non-targeted radioisotope diagnostics and or therapeutics that are being developed by other companies to actually launch and or commercialize into the Japan market. So as I mentioned, with this growing number of radiopharmaceutical companies outside of Japan, there is a large and growing list of exciting products. And when those products want to be introduced into the Japan market, unique to the radiopharm sector is that they would have to largely go through one of the two established players that have licenses to actually handle in the infrastructure to handle and deliver radiopharmaceutical products across Japan. So we believe the combination of PeptiDream and PDR Radiopharma now gives a full-scale radiopharm company and a real strong foundation to lead this field in Japan, and very much looking toward the future. So on the next slide, we just highlight some of the PDR Radiopharm product portfolio. So PDR Radiopharma, as I mentioned, was started in 1968 with full development, regulatory, marketing, and sales capabilities. It currently sells 8 therapeutics on the market and 24 diagnostic products in Japan, with just a couple of these highlighted here on the therapeutic side, such as the sodium iodine capsules, the RIA MIBG, which was more recent, and also Zevalin, which is actually one of the oldest, or one of the very original targeted radio therapeutics a number of years ago. In addition to that, on the diagnostic side of the equation, we have both PET imaging agents and also SPECT imaging agents. On the PET side, as highlighted by the Amyvid, which is many people may be aware, this was a kit developed by Lilly, which we licensed into Japan for the visualization of beta amyloid plaques in the brain of patients with MCI, mild cognitive impairment, or suspected to have dementia-induced AD, and then also the FTG product that is used across a variety of disease indications. And on the SPECT side, OctreoScan, Techni NDB, Neurolite, Cardiolite, and MyoMBG. A couple of these, one of the OctreoScan product coming from Curium, and the Neurolite products being licensed into Japan from Lantheus. So the PDR Radiopharma has already established a business of being able to license in compounds from outside Japan. There just wasn't a lot of products, and I think as we're now moving into kind of a new phase or a new generation of novel radiotherapeutics and radiodiagnostics, there's a growing opportunity for us to become the partner of choice for companies outside of Japan to launch their products into Japan. In addition to the existing, so just building on the existing recent label expansions that occurred in 2023 was in part around Amyvid. So we saw an approved label expansion for the Amyvid product around the visualization of beta amyloid plaques, extending to patients with mild cognitive impairment or suspected to have dementia. And in part, of course, this is a prelude to the approvals of the AZI and in the future, potentially the Lilly A-beta therapeutics for Alzheimer's disease, which are new exciting products potentially for the treatment of Alzheimer's disease, of course. And on the far right was the label expansion in 2023 of the Techni Phytate kit, which is extended beyond just breast cancer and malignant melanoma diagnosis, potentially to be used in cervical cancer, endometrial cancer, vulvar cancer, head and neck cancer also. So potentially growth in both of those two products with these expanded labels. In addition to the existing products is the PeptiDream and PDR pipeline of agents. And we're just highlighting some of the top products in the pipeline. There are a number of products that are at an earlier stage. And of course, we've now set up the company to rapidly expand this pipeline going forward. Initially from the top down, though, is one of the historic programs. This was already with PDR when we acquired the company. It is a small molecule radioisotope conjugate that was actually licensed targeting integrin alpha V beta 3 and alpha V beta 5, potentially for the use of a variety of tumors, but malignant glioma is one of those, which was licensed to Novartis and is currently in a phase 1 study, as we'll touch on. And we hold, PDR Pharma holds the Japan rights to this compound. The second list there is arising from our collaboration with Reid Bio, is a coined RYZ801 and RYZ881 is the theranostic or the theranostic pair, the therapeutic and diagnostic pair, targeting glypican-3 for the diagnosis and treatment of hepatocellular carcinoma. We'll touch on this. Reid has the global rights to this, and PeptiDream retains the Japan rights to this product. More recently, I'll touch on, we also highlighted our CA9 program, listed as PD32766 for renal cell carcinoma, to which we have the global rights. We haven't found a global partner for this program as of yet. We will, of course, be retaining Japan rights to this product. And then more recently was an announcement of a Novartis program, which is the target of which is non-disclosed at this stage. And the indication is non-disclosed at this stage, but arising from our Novartis partnership, which has global rights to the compound. And then the last is a PPMX2002, which was an antibody targeting cadherin 3 for solid tumors, to which PPMX is leading development of this product. On the diagnostic pipeline side, maybe one of the highlights is the TauVid kit, which we licensed in from Lilly and is currently being developed in Japan by PDRadiopharma. It's currently in a phase 3 study ongoing, with the launch anticipated in the near future, or in the future here. And then we also have a historical program for PSMA, a diagnostic for PSMA, as well as a diagnostic partnered with BMS for PD-L1 in detecting PD-L1 expressing tumors. So moving into a little bit more detail around these programs. The first is the historic program targeting alpha V beta 3, beta 5. This was, again, a small molecule compound, as is listed there, initially discovered by PDRadiopharma, conjugated to a diagnostic gallium or a therapeutic lutetium. As is stated there, this is actually currently in 2 phase 1 studies being run by Novartis outside Japan for glioblastoma, for the treatment of glioblastoma or brain neuroplasms, and also adenocarcinoma as potential treatment indications. So we look forward to updating on this program as it progresses forward, and leveraging or bridging this compound's data potentially back into the Japan market at some point in the future. The next program that we're able to show a little bit more on is the glypican-3 targeting program. Again, this is something that has been more recently announced by Reid Bio, potentially for the treatment of hepatocellular carcinoma, to which there's a significant need and a significant patient population. The diagnostic will be a gallium. It has the gallium-68, and the therapeutic is utilizing actinium-225. These were nominated as development candidates in 2023. On the lower left is just showing the biodistribution of our macrocyclic peptide conjugate, showing significant selectivity and retention in tumors with very little other organ accumulation and very low kidney over time. Really, basically an optimal profile for a targeted therapeutic. And in part because of that profile, on the right, the lower right side there, you could see a significant tumor reduction upon treatment of the Reid 801 therapeutic compound in a mouse model of HCC. We actually in this model compared both lutetium and actinium-225, showing the power of both of these radioisotopes to significantly reduce tumor size. As I mentioned earlier, in part because of the benefits of these being radiopharm agents or products, Reid Bio had initiated basically phase 0 studies earlier in the year. As is listed there, thus far, I think 47, last report, 47 HCC patients have been imaged using, and I think it's slated to be roughly 100 patients by the end of the year. They could observe tumor uptake in HCC patients in roughly 90% of patients, showing this is a highly selective and highly indicative of these lesions. So both validating both its diagnostic and potentially highlighting its therapeutic promise here. The compound is also currently in IND-enabling studies, as is listed across the lower bottom here, with an IND filing anticipated in the first half of 2024, before this will move into a phase 1 study after that. The phase 0 data, of course, is being utilized to guide and best design the subsequent clinical studies that will happen. And our overall plan, because we have the Japan rights to this compound, is that as this progresses toward a pivotal phase 2 study, that we will actually bridge the data generated from the Raised Bio folks into Japan to actually enter or combine to be part of a global pivotal trial here and accelerate the development of this program, basically be on track with the global development of this program, and hopefully launch in Japan in a similar timeframe to the potential launch of this compound outside Japan. So as is just listed there, we do hold it's an option right to attain the development commercialization rights in Japan with no payments back to the Raised Bio folks. In addition to that, we recently announced the first of what hopefully will become many of our internal peptide RI conjugate programs targeting CA9. This is we've named the program thus far PD32766. Initially, the indication, while CA9 is expressed in a number of tumors, initially the main focus will be around clear cell renal cell carcinoma, to which there is a significant need, and this is the most common type of kidney cancer with a relatively low 5-year survival rate. We have not yet decided on whether the diagnostic will be copper-based or gallium-based, and we're still also investigating whether we will utilize lutetium or actinium as the therapeutic for subsequent clinical development. On the lower part of this is some illustrations or some images from the in vivo CC, the renal cell carcinoma tumor mouse models that we had generated, to which shows the 32766 really shows high specific targeting uptake to these tumors with minimal non-tumor accumulation in other organs. Again, really illustrating an ideal profile for this compound and for utilizing our peptides in this type of approach. We also showed strong tumor reduction efficacy, supporting the decision to take this program forward. And lastly, is the reason there is not a lot of results put into this presentation is actually we're preparing to present a number of these findings at an upcoming medical conference here in 2024. So there'll be certainly more to come on this program from the PeptiDream side. In addition to that, on slide 14, we just announced a collaboration with the National Cancer Center Japan to initiate early human imaging studies of this PD32766. This was just announced here in November 2023, with the goal, initially we will take the copper, so as is shown in the middle part of the slide here, NCC Epoch Institute will label our peptide chelator conjugate with copper 64. We will take this into a phase 0 clinical research study, generating human imaging data directly in kidney cancer cell patients to really leverage and de-risk this asset. It will be the first in human imaging study, and it is slated to commence here in the first half of 2024. At the same time, we're actually have initiated IND enabling efforts a little while back, and we are progressing forward to preparing for an IND filing in the future. And the intention, of course, is to utilize the results coming out of this human genome study, as I mentioned, to accelerate the clinical development of PD32766 for the treatment of renal cell carcinoma. And we intend to retain Japan rights to this program, and we have not yet decided as to what we will do with ex-Japan rights, whether we retain those or whether we will look for a global partner to accelerate the development. In addition to those therapeutic programs, again, as I mentioned, there's a number of other preclinical programs in partnerships with Novartis, in partnership with Reid, ongoing across our portfolio, to which we look forward to reporting progress on in the future. An additional aspect on the diagnostic front is the first FDA-approved PET tracer for imaging tau pathology in Alzheimer's disease. We had announced, PeptiDream had announced a partnership with Eli Lilly for the development of tau in Japan in November of 2022, post-acquisition. This agent was approved in by the FDA in 2020, but it has not yet been approved, of course, here in Japan. And it's extremely useful, as is shown here, to really image and diagnose the abnormal aggregation of tau proteins as one of the main pathologies present in Alzheimer's disease patients. After approval, as is highlighted across the bottom, after approval in Japan, PDR-radiopharma plans to be responsible for manufacturing and marketing this product in the Japan market. And because we also hold the marketing approval for the Amyvid diagnostic agent, we will now have, or in the near future, we will hold the marketing approval for both the beta amyloid Amyvid and Tauvid kits, giving us the strong Alzheimer's disease imaging product lineup, the strongest product lineup here in Japan, and really kind of illustrates the important role PeptiDream and PDR are playing here in Japan in the diagnosis and potential treatment of Alzheimer's disease. Next slide is just overall kind of some other notable events across the business. As many people may be aware, we announced another multi-program collaboration focused on peptide RI conjugates with Genentech, a company that classically has not been in the radiopharm space. This was quite a big move for the Roche Genentech folks to move into the radiopharm space. That was announced in August 2023. This is their first entry, of course. We retained the Japan rights to develop and commercialize any of the arising products generated from this collaboration with Genentech, and Genentech has global ex-Japan rights. In addition to that, Reid Bio, who has been our partner since 2020, completed a very successful IPO listing on the NASDAQ in September of 2023 with a ticker of RYZB, which has held up extremely well. In that IPO, we sold roughly half of our stake in the company. We had roughly a 5% stake in Reid Bio as part of our 2020 agreement with them, yielding roughly $21 million US dollars, and we still retain the rest of the stake in the company, and look forward to the future success of Reid Bio, of course. And we also, as I touched on, announced a milestone achievement in our alliance with Novartis, which is a multi-program RI-PDC discovery alliance. And this was the first program that has now moved into IND-enabling studies. And we look forward to that progressing toward the clinic. And from this partnership, there's always limited information that we're allowed to disclose, but as this progresses forward into the clinic and other programs progress forward, we hope to be able to announce more information, of course. And then the upper right was the development plan for PPMX2002, which was recently announced by our partner PPMX for the development of an antibody RI conjugate. The antibody was discovered by PPMX. That was in partnership with PDR-radiopharma, and PPMX is responsible for development commercialization, is currently in discussion with a number of partners to potentially progress this forward. And then another minor but very important area was an acquisition made by PDR-radiopharma of RI digital solution assets from Ryukyu ISG, which really brings in significant automation and digitalization of our entire RI administration process, which was going to be extremely helpful in PDR becoming a total solution provider in the radiotherapy field. And so very excited actually about this. This is kind of things that happen maybe a little bit more under the surface, but nevertheless an extremely important asset to be joining to our expanding list of capabilities. In addition to the RI peptide conjugates, another core area of focus for us is the non-RI peptide drug conjugate space, in part because of the versatile use of our macrocyclic peptides as delivery agents or carriers that could be combined with a variety of payloads across the variety of our partnerships. And I think many people will be aware, we've touched on some of these collaborations in the past. PeptiDream's role is responsible for finding the macrocyclic peptide carrier agents. And then the partners bring the payload part of the equation to then make the conjugates. And the two companies work together toward identifying potential clinical candidates or clinical products to advance forward. And this effort, partnerships in this area are with Shionogi from 2019, Takeda and Alnylam in 2021, Lilly and Merck in 2022, and then Astellas in 2023. And these kind of span a variety of different payload classes, with one of the main areas being the delivery of oligonucleotide payloads, for those being siRNA, ASO, or HDO oligo drugs. And as everyone is aware, the field is trying to move beyond liver by targeting other tissues for therapeutic use, such as brain, kidney, heart, muscle, and lung are kind of the main initial tissue areas of interest. And our peptides seem to be proving quite useful in being able to target these oligo drugs to those tissue types specifically. And so I think this is a very, very exciting area of drug discovery for us, in something, as we're allowed to, that we're going to talk about more once we actually have the first kind of clinical candidates coming from these various collaborations. A second main group in the non-RI space is really cytotoxic drugs. I'm sure everyone is very much aware of ADCs, of course, and the ability to, instead of using an antibody, to use a macrocyclic peptide for the same delivery concept. As we've just showed on the preceding slides, our peptides, when conjugated to an RI, are extremely effective in targeting tumors. And instead of using an RI payload, that could just be exchanged for a cytotoxic payload to follow something very similar to the ADC concept. And I think there's a lot of compelling advantages, possibly, in the use of a peptide drug conjugate versus an antibody drug conjugate, that is going to allow us to open more disease and therapeutic space than what we've already seen with the powerful ADCs. And then just on the other, there's a basket for us that goes beyond just oligo and our small molecule cytotoxic payloads, in which we are often bringing some type of target or some type of payload directly to a target for sort of binding. And so we highlighted kind of the areas of protein degraders, immune recruiters, multifunctional peptide conjugates topics we've kind of highlighted in the past, and it is an area that we will talk about more as products actually advance out of those discovery efforts. And the next slide is just very briefly highlighting on a deal, the Merck deal that was announced in 2022, that was specifically around cytotoxic peptide drug conjugates. Merck is heavily investing and has a number of ADC programs, and is extremely excited about the use of macrocyclic peptides as an alternative to antibodies to deliver these cytotoxic payloads. So I do think there's going to be hopefully significant news to come out of this collaboration in the future. And then in 2023, in the summer of 2023, we announced a new deal with Astellas in the protein degrader space, to which, as everyone is probably aware of the degrader space, having two potent ligands on both sides of the conjugate, to one selectively bind to a target, and then on the other side to actually recruit, most commonly as an E3 ligase, but to recruit an enzyme that will then target that target protein for degradation, downstream degradation, seems to be an extremely powerful approach. It's often quite challenging to find very high affinity, high selective target ligands, and really our peptide approach seems to be quite ideal in the ability to identify these ligands. So we think this is also a significantly promising area to hopefully, again, as things can move forward or into later stage preclinical development, those are topics we can potentially highlight in the future. And then the next large core area, of course, for PeptiDream PDR is our the peptide therapeutic pipeline. We have a number of collaborations, of course, across the peptide therapeutic modality space. In this is just the 5 compounds that have actually moved into human testing thus far. And so going forward, we're largely going to just focus on late stage, late preclinical assets and/or clinical assets in the pipeline. We will briefly touch on the 4 programs here highlighted in blue, and we won't discuss anything new in regards to the Biohaven. We are anticipating potentially a new update in 2024, so we'll update as we're available then. That's being as an efficient physician-led study out of Dana-Farber. And then more recently in the summer of 2023, of course, Merck announced that they had initiated a phase 1 study with a macrocyclic peptide that came from our PDPS platform. And that target is currently, an indication is currently undisclosed at this stage, but we look forward to being able to announce more on that program in the future, of course. And then lastly, across the bottom is a small molecule drug that was the discovery of which was enabled by our peptide, a peptide discovered by PeptiDream in partnership with Modulus. The small molecule clinical candidate was selected in August 2023, and Modulus is currently planning development of this compound and undergoing a variety of different deal discussions around potential partnerships around this program, to which we look forward to, of course, updating on as we're able. So just briefly, on slide 20 is the AZP3813 program that is partnered with Amylite. AZP3813 was discovered at PeptiDream and then licensed to Amylite, I think around 2020, maybe 2021, for the treatment of acromegaly. As is shown there, the compound actually blocks the GHR receptor, which then in turn allows for the regulation or of IGF levels in these patients, which has a significant therapeutic benefit, of course, in acromegaly patients. And the Amylite side is kind of highlighted on the lower left, and both of these poster presentations have been posted on our website. Amylite gave very nice presentations at both the European Congress of Endocrinology in June of 2023 and the Endocrine Society's annual meeting in June of 2023 around the efficacy of this bicyclic macrocyclic peptide identified by us. And that really AZP3813 exhibits effective sustained in vivo suppression of IGF levels, both in mouse, in rodent models, and then also extended into beagle dog models, really supporting its clinical development, which then piggybacked on the announcement that they had taken this into a phase 1 clinical study. In the phase 1 study, of course, is evaluating classic safety and tolerability in healthy volunteers, PK/PD, in a single and multiple ascending dose regimen, with the results of this phase 1 trial expected, according to Amylite, in the first quarter of 2024. And just took a small excerpt from the Amylite press release by their chief medical officer, to which they believe that there's strong scientific rationale for combining basically the somatostatin antagonists with GHRs to further decrease IS levels and to antagonize the peripheral effects of growth hormone action. And their intent is to develop AZP3813 as an add-on to SSAs to improve control of the disease and quality of life for more patients. So we're looking forward to updating the progress of this exciting product going forward. PeptiDream is entitled to, of course, milestones and royalties on the sales of this product as it progresses forward. On slide 21 is just an update on our PD-L1 inhibitor program. The PD-L1 inhibitor was discovered at PeptiDream in collaboration with BMS. The BMS holds, of course, the development and commercialization rights to this compound. The compound very potently and selectively binds to PD-L1, blocking the PD-L1 interaction, which is the same ligand pair of Opdivo and Keytruda. I'm sure everyone is very much aware of this, of course. The compound had entered a clinical phase 1 study in April of 2022 to investigate safety, tolerability, and pharmacokinetics in 138 volunteers in the UK. And that study had met the criteria for deferral of publication, and so there wasn't a lot of trial details that were announced up till now. The phase 1 study is actually anticipated to be wrapped up, or should be near wrapped up, or just wrapped up recently, with a clinical study report anticipated in the summer of 2024. As everyone is aware, as we announced in October of 2023, BMS had decided to not advance the PD-L1 therapeutic program beyond the ongoing phase 1 healthy volunteer study, deciding for business reasons, deciding to basically prioritize the other programs in the BMS portfolio. And this was, again, for business reasons and not due to any safety concerns. At current, there are multiple options. PeptiDream has multiple options for this program, but initially at least, we have to wait for the clinical study report to be received in the summer of 2024, to which we will then determine next steps for this program. And so we're looking forward to updating further as we near that stage. On slide 22 is PA001. PA001 is a macrocyclic peptide inhibitor of the COVID S protein S2. It was discovered by PeptiDream and licensed to PeptiAid, with PeptiAid having development and global commercialization rights to the compound. It acts through an interesting mechanism of action, and that actually blocks viral entry, which is, of course, as everyone may be aware, is different from the Gilead, Merck, Pfizer, and Shionogi compounds, which inhibit viral replication. And so there's the potential for combination or synergy between this compound and these agents to give added therapeutic benefit. On the lower left is actually showing the in vivo therapeutic efficacy of PA001 in a lethal mouse model, shown to be very effective. PA001 has shown broad that we've tested to date, including alpha, beta, delta, omicron, and more recent variants. It has a unique mechanism of action, as we've just stated. The potential for greater efficacy when combined with existing or other COVID-19 therapeutics. Recently, in 2023, this program was adopted by AMED as part of a research program to promote the development of innovative therapeutics for emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases, which is funding the ability of this compound to actually move into a phase 1 clinical trial. So at current, PeptiAid is conducting IND-enabling studies funded by AMED with the intention of then planning for an IND submission here in 2024. So good progress across this program, even though the overall market dynamics for COVID therapeutics has changed. And lastly, in the presentation today is our myostatin inhibitor program. This is our myostatin inhibitor, which doesn't have an identifying number yet, but was discovered at PeptiDream, initially in collaboration with Kawasaki Medical School here in Japan. It is a potent macrocyclic peptide inhibitor of myostatin. And myostatin is a major negative regulator of muscle growth. And so by inhibiting myostatin, you actually can retain muscle strength and or gain muscle strength. And so initially this compound, as we've shown in the lower left here, the program was originally developed for muscular disorders. We had a large focus on DMD, and the compound was taken into, has undergone studies in a number of mouse models for DMD, to which we could see very nice efficacy of the ability of this macrocyclic peptide to actually improve muscle strength and or grip strength in these animals in comparison to an antibody against myostatin, suggesting that the peptide might have a better, say, effect over the myostatin antibodies of the past. More recently, there's growing evidence for the benefit of myostatin inhibitors in the treatment of obesity. And so I think this is a growing now topic for, as everyone is very much aware of, the GLP-1 agonists and their potential uses. And so an exciting area going forward. And And so just briefly on the far right is just to capture, one, the myostatin targeting area has had a kind of varied history, certainly in the treatment of DMD, but more recently, an antibody inhibitor of myostatin has actually shown in a phase 2 study to be have very positive results in SMA, which is a disease that is kind of where high myostatin levels in this disease play an important pathological role. And so this data in phase 2 kind of has really solidified potentially the promise of myostatin inhibitors for treating muscular disorders. So we're very excited about those results and what they potentially mean for our peptide therapeutic approach, in part because our peptide has shown efficacy both as an injectable and then more recently in 2023 as an oral peptide, really giving it first-in-class potential, best-in-class and first-in-class potential in the myostatin inhibition area. And then lastly, as I mentioned, this peptide has shown now to increase skeletal muscle strength and mass. And as everyone is probably aware, the GLP-1 agonists induce weight loss, but they reduce fat muscle as well as skeletal muscle mass. In fact, that's, if anything, maybe at current the largest liability with the GLP-1 dual agonist area. So the potential to combine our peptide with GLP-1 agonists to lose weight while retaining lean muscle is a really exciting use. And in fact, there was actually a presentation made recently by Regeneron of actually showing a myostatin pathway inhibitor combined with one of the GLP-1 dual agonists to in fact show an increase in muscle mass with a larger decrease in weight loss, actually showing the complementary effects of these two, this type of combination therapy. And so we think actually this compound is extremely well positioned, given that this would be the only, I believe, only known oral, potent oral myostatin inhibitor that is out there for us to potentially progress forward. We have a number of preclinical studies going on to investigate this opportunity, and we look forward to announcing more on this program in 2024. And with that, I would like to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to us again today, and we are happy to take any questions that anyone may have.